Am I the asshole for ignoring my wife, for throwing away my late wife videotapes? For 18 years, I saved those videotapes as if they were gold, waiting for the day my daughter could finally hear her mother's voice and feel her presence again. Now, the memories I carefully protected are gone, thrown away by someone I chose to trust with my heart. Am I wrong to feel betrayed, or is the pain I'm feeling justified? If you felt the pain behind this story, if you understand the hurt I'm carrying right now, please support me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Your kindness means more than you know. Thank you for being here. When I first met Chloe, we were both young students in college. I remember clearly the day we saw each other for the first time. It was a sunny afternoon, and she was sitting on the grass, reading a book quietly. Her hair fell gently over her shoulders, and she looked peaceful. I couldn't take my eyes off her. After a while, I finally found the courage to talk to her, and that's how our story began. We quickly became good friends. Chloe was kind-hearted and funny, always making people around her feel comfortable. We would spend long evenings talking about life, sharing our dreams, and laughing over simple jokes. Soon enough, our friendship grew into something deeper, and we fell in love. Life with Chloe was beautiful and easy. Every moment felt special, whether we were walking in the park or studying together at night. Time went by, and after we finished college, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my whole life with. So I asked Chloe to marry me. She smiled happily, tears of joy in her eyes, and said yes. Our families and friends were excited when we shared the news. Everyone loved Chloe. Her joyful personality and gentle nature made it impossible not to. Our wedding day arrived faster than I imagined. I felt nervous but excited at the same time. When Chloe walked towards me wearing her beautiful white dress, everything else faded away. Her smile was so bright it made my heart beat faster. We exchanged vows and promised to love each other forever. It was one of the happiest days of my life. Just a few weeks after our wedding, Chloe shared some wonderful news with me. She was expecting our first baby. I remember clearly how she showed me the positive test, her eyes sparkling with happiness. My heart jumped with excitement. We hugged each other tightly, feeling overwhelmed with joy. It felt like our dreams were finally coming true. We both decided that we wanted to remember every special moment of this journey. So we bought a small video camera to record our experiences during Chloe's pregnancy. It was our way of capturing precious memories, little moments we didn't want to forget. We recorded simple things, like Chloe eating ice cream at midnight, us choosing baby clothes together, and even silly moments when we laughed about nothing at all. Sometimes we talked directly to our baby through the camera, telling her about how much we loved her already. We wondered aloud who she would look like and what her favorite things would be. We made silly guesses about whether she'd have Chloe's laughter or my stubbornness. Recording these moments felt important. We wanted our child to know how deeply she was loved even before we had met her. One night, as we sat together on our couch watching the videos we had recorded, Chloe suggested something special. She thought it would be beautiful if we saved these videos and gave them as a gift to our child when she turned 18. We both liked this idea a lot, imagining how special it would feel for our daughter to see how excited we had been while waiting for her. We promised each other right there that we would save these tapes carefully, keeping them hidden until the perfect moment. Months passed quickly, and soon it was time to welcome our daughter. When Eleanor was born, I held her carefully in my arms, feeling so proud and full of love. She had tiny fingers and eyes just like Chloe's. As we looked down at her sleeping face, we knew our lives would never be the same. It was the start of our little family, a new chapter filled with love and happiness. Those first days were full of joy. We enjoyed every small thing, feeding her, changing her diapers, and just watching her sleep peacefully. Our little home was full of love and laughter. I remember clearly one night, watching Chloe gently sing to Eleanor as she rocked her to sleep. At that moment, I knew I had everything I ever wanted. Life was beautiful, and we looked forward to raising Eleanor together. We dreamed about seeing her first steps, hearing her first words, and helping her grow into a kind and loving person. Every day felt like a blessing, and I was grateful to share it all with Chloe. We didn't know it then, but the simple promise we made to keep those videos safe would become one of the most important things we ever did. Our lives would soon change in ways we never imagined, but those happy days, full of love and hope, stayed locked in our hearts forever. Life changed forever on a cold evening 2 years after Eleanor was born. I was at home putting our daughter to sleep, waiting for Chloe to return from her mother's house. I checked the clock many times, each minute feeling slower than the last. Usually she would call if she was running late, but that night my phone remained silent. Then the phone rang suddenly, breaking the quiet of the night. My heart skipped as I answered. It wasn't Chloe's voice, but a stranger speaking calmly, telling me there had been an accident. My mind went blank, and I felt weak. They asked me to come quickly to the hospital, and my entire body turned cold with fear. When I reached the hospital, everything seemed unreal. Nurses and doctors moved quickly around me, their voices low and serious. I searched desperately for Chloe, hoping to see her smile, praying this was all a mistake. But soon a doctor approached me slowly, his eyes filled with sadness. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and quietly told me Chloe was gone. The world around me shattered into 1,000 pieces. I couldn't breathe, and for a moment everything went silent. I sat alone in the empty waiting room, unable to believe what had happened. My heart felt broken and tears filled my eyes. Chloe had always been there beside me. Imagining life without her seemed impossible. I felt helpless, knowing I'd never hear her laughter again or feel her warm hand in mine. The sudden loss left me feeling empty, like part of me had been taken away forever. In the days that followed, friends and family visited, trying their best to comfort me, but nothing they said could ease my pain. Every room in our house reminded me of Chloe, her favorite coffee mug still sitting on the table, her shoes lined neatly by the door. I held on to these small things, trying to keep her memory alive, but it was never enough. I tried my best to be strong for Eleanor, knowing she needed me more than ever. Yet, raising her alone felt overwhelming. Every night as I rocked her to sleep, I wished Chloe was there to hold our daughter with me, to share the small joys and struggles. Sometimes I found myself crying silently, hoping that somehow Chloe could still hear me, telling her how much I missed her. My friends wanted to help. They encouraged me to spend time with them, hoping that being around others would help me feel better. At first, I refused, unable to imagine myself smiling or laughing again. Eventually, I tried going out, thinking it might ease my loneliness. But each time I stepped outside, guilt overwhelmed me. It felt as though moving forward meant leaving Chloe behind, betraying the love we shared. So, I stayed home instead, living quietly with my sadness. The hardest part was answering Eleanor's questions as she grew older. She began asking about her mother, wondering why her mommy wasn't around. Each time I explained that Chloe was gone, my heart broke all over again. Her small, curious eyes filled with confusion made me wish I could change everything and give her the life she deserved. I often lay awake at night, replaying memories of happier times. Sometimes it felt like Chloe was close, just out of reach, whispering softly in the dark. Other nights, reality hit me hard, reminding me how alone I truly was. Those were the toughest moments, feeling trapped in grief that wouldn't fade away. As months turned into years, my pain slowly became more manageable, but it never fully left. Chloe's absence was always there, a quiet ache deep inside my chest. Still, I kept moving forward, holding tightly onto her memory. I promised myself that no matter how difficult life became, I would never forget the love we shared, or how lucky I had been to know her. Through it all, Eleanor became my reason to keep going. Her laughter reminded me of Chloe's, filling the house with warmth again. I saw Chloe in our daughter's eyes, and each day my little girl gave me strength. She helped me realize that while Chloe was gone, a part of her still lived on through the child we both loved so deeply. Despite the years passing by, the pain of losing Chloe never completely faded. Instead, I learned to carry it with me, quietly and gently, like an old friend. It became part of who I was, a reminder of how deeply I had loved and lost. And even though my heart still felt broken sometimes, I knew I had to stay strong for Eleanor, determined to give her all the love her mother would have given, if only life had allowed it. Years passed quietly as I settled into life alone with Eleanor. Raising her by myself was challenging, but slowly we found our rhythm. As she grew, my daughter became my greatest source of joy, filling the emptiness in my heart. Still, something felt missing. Deep down, I wished for someone to share life with, someone who understood the journey I had been through. Then, on a warm summer day when Eleanor was 13, my sister invited us to her birthday gathering. I wasn't too excited at first, but decided to go anyway to make my sister happy. That day, among familiar faces, I noticed someone new, a woman quietly talking with a small group nearby. She looked friendly and relaxed, with an easy smile that drew people toward her. My sister introduced her as Wendy, a friend she'd met recently. Wendy had 2 kids of her own and had recently gone through a divorce. We spoke briefly at first, just simple small talk, but something about her made me feel at ease. After a few conversations, we discovered we had many things in common. Both of us had experienced life's ups and downs and were cautious about opening our hearts again. Over time, Wendy and I began spending more moments together. We enjoyed simple things, taking walks in the park, cooking dinner together, or just sharing stories about our kids. Wendy made me laugh again in a way I hadn't in years. For the first time since my loss, I felt comfortable letting someone new into my life. When I introduced Wendy to Eleanor, I worried about how my daughter might react. Eleanor had always known me as someone who dedicated all his love only to her. Thankfully, Wendy understood this completely. She didn't try to replace anyone. Instead, she carefully built her own relationship with my daughter, respecting our family's past. Soon, Eleanor and Wendy grew close, talking and laughing comfortably, forming a bond that eased my heart. Wendy's own children also became part of our lives. At first, combining two families felt complicated. Different routines and habits created small challenges, but we worked together patiently. Gradually, our blended family felt more natural, each of us becoming comfortable in this new setting. I saw Eleanor forming friendships with Wendy's children, which made me realize how much we had all needed one another. One evening, while Wendy and I sat on the porch after dinner, I felt the courage to ask if she'd consider marrying again. Her eyes sparkled warmly as she smiled and agreed without hesitation. I knew then that life had given me another chance at happiness. We planned a small ceremony with close friends and family, quietly marking the start of our new life together. Our marriage brought fresh energy into my home. Wendy's laughter and kindness created warmth that filled each room. Life felt simpler and lighter. Still, she respected the memories I kept, understanding they were part of me. I appreciated that she never pushed me to forget the past. Instead, Wendy gave me space to move forward naturally. At night, when the house was quiet, Wendy and I often spoke softly about our future. We dreamed of traveling together once our kids were older and imagined peaceful days spent enjoying each other's company. Wendy's steady presence reassured me that love could find me again, even after the deepest sadness. Slowly, my heart opened fully, ready to embrace what came next. With each passing day, our bond grew stronger. Wendy's ability to support and comfort everyone around her impressed me deeply. She became someone I trusted completely, offering encouragement in difficult times and celebrating small victories with genuine happiness. It felt good to have a partner again, someone who understood life's complexities and still chose to stand beside me. Eleanor's acceptance of Wendy made me happier than I could explain. Watching them laugh and talk felt like a sign that our family was finally healing. Wendy had given my daughter something valuable, a trusted friend, someone to share secrets and hopes with. As a father, nothing mattered more than seeing Eleanor's happiness. As time went on, our family blended smoothly into one. Wendy and I learned to parent together, supporting each other's decisions and gently guiding our kids. Life wasn't always perfect, of course, but we faced problems as a team. In moments of disagreement, Wendy listened patiently, always willing to find common ground. I realized with a grateful heart that new beginnings were possible, even after deep sorrow. Wendy showed me that it was okay to feel joy again, to laugh freely, and to dream once more. Our love had grown quietly but deeply, bringing peace into our lives. Now, with Wendy by my side, I felt hopeful about the future. As Eleanor's 18th birthday came closer, my excitement grew. I looked forward to finally sharing the special memories I had saved for her. Thinking about her reaction filled me with joy. One evening, while talking to Wendy, I happily mentioned my plans for Eleanor's gift. Wendy smiled at first, but soon I noticed a strange look on her face. Her eyes grew quiet and she didn't say much afterward. I wondered if something had upset her, but I decided not to ask immediately. After a few days, I noticed Wendy acting differently each time I mentioned Eleanor's mother. Her face showed discomfort, and she would quickly change the topic. At first, I thought she was just tired or busy, but I soon realized something deeper was bothering her. One night after dinner, Wendy quietly told me how hard it was for her to hear about my late wife. She admitted feeling as if she couldn't measure up. Her words surprised me and made me feel guilty, even though I never meant to compare them. Wendy explained further, sharing openly about her insecurities. She described herself as an ordinary woman, saying she could never compete with someone so beautiful and talented. Hearing her speak this way hurt me deeply, because I cared about Wendy exactly as she was. I gently reassured her, reminding her that my love had nothing to do with how someone looked or what they achieved. "Still," Wendy cried softly, and my words did little to comfort her. Seeing her pain made me feel helpless, not knowing how to ease her worries. The next morning, Wendy came to me with a quiet smile and apologized. She said she felt better after talking about her feelings openly. Her calm voice reassured me, and I believed we had moved past the issue. She then asked to see the videotapes I'd saved for Eleanor. Without hesitation, I led her upstairs and showed her the small box stored safely in my closet. She stood there quietly for a moment, staring at it, then gave me a brief smile before walking away. As the days passed, I sensed that Wendy still seemed distant. Her laughter didn't come easily, and our conversations became shorter and quieter. I thought it was temporary, just something she needed to work through. So I gave her space, hoping time would bring us back to normal. Meanwhile, my attention returned to preparing for Eleanor's birthday celebration. One afternoon, as I started preparing the gift, I decided to put the videos into a nicer, more special box. Feeling happy and hopeful, I went to the closet to get them. But the box was no longer there. Confused, I checked everywhere in the room, thinking perhaps I had moved it accidentally. After searching thoroughly, my anxiety grew, and I felt my heart start to beat faster. Quickly, I went downstairs to ask Wendy if she had seen them. I found Wendy sitting quietly on the couch, calmly watching TV. When I asked about the missing videos, she looked straight at me without emotion and told me that she had thrown them away. Her words shocked me, and I felt dizzy, barely able to understand what she'd done. I asked her again, desperately hoping I had heard wrong, but Wendy repeated clearly that she had thrown the tapes out because she believed it would help me move forward. Her simple explanation has made me furious and filled my heart with sadness. I couldn't believe she had taken away something so precious from Eleanor and me. I struggled to stay calm, but my voice shook as anger took over. Wendy suddenly realized the hurt she'd caused and quickly tried to apologize, but the damage was already done. Without saying another word, I turned and walked upstairs. Unable to look at her, alone in the bedroom, I felt deeply betrayed. My trust had been broken, and I didn't know how to forgive Wendy for such an act. I sat quietly, holding back tears, questioning how someone I loved so much could hurt me this deeply. My heart was torn between sadness for Eleanor, who had lost something important, and frustration with Wendy, who had crossed a line that seemed impossible to fix. For the rest of the evening, Wendy kept trying to speak to me, sending messages full of regret. But I couldn't answer. The pain felt too raw, and her apologies seemed meaningless. My heart needed time to heal. As night fell, I stayed locked in our room, thinking about how we had ended up here, unsure if things could ever feel normal again. My thoughts raced uncontrollably as I paced back and forth in our bedroom. Anger mixed with deep sadness made it hard to think clearly. Wendy's apologies kept arriving, but I ignored every message. Each one felt empty and meaningless compared to the hurt she'd caused. I couldn't grasp why she thought throwing away such precious memories was acceptable. As I sat quietly on the edge of the bed, my mind replayed Wendy's explanation. She believed removing those videos would help me let go of the past. But instead, she had taken something irreplaceable away from Eleanor. I imagined my daughter's disappointment when she discovered what happened, and my heart sank even further. My anger wasn't only for myself, it was for my daughter, who had already lost so much. Unable to sleep, I spent most of the night searching through my computer. I hoped desperately to find copies or fragments of old videos, anything at all, to replace what Wendy had destroyed. Each empty folder felt like another loss, increasing the sadness weighing on my chest. As dawn approached, my tired eyes still found nothing helpful, leaving me feeling even more defeated. The next morning, I avoided Wendy completely. I knew that seeing her face would bring out emotions I wasn't ready to deal with yet. Instead, I stayed quietly locked away in my office, trying to keep busy, though my mind kept wandering back to the painful event. My phone buzzed throughout the day, Wendy pleading for forgiveness, but I left each text unanswered. Later that afternoon, mutual friends began reaching out, urging me to forgive Wendy. Their messages felt careless, telling me it was time to move forward because Chloe had passed away years ago. Each comment hurt deeply, making me feel misunderstood and alone. They couldn't understand my grief, the heaviness that lingered even after many years. How could they expect me to simply erase my memories and move on as if nothing had happened? Frustration grew as the day passed slowly. Part of me wondered if maybe I was overreacting, but then I remembered how carefully Chloe and I had created those videos. Each one had been special, filled with joy and hope. Now, Eleanor would never experience that precious connection. I found myself feeling angrier, thinking about how easily Wendy had disregarded something so important to me. By evening, Wendy knocked softly on my office door, asking quietly if she could speak. Her voice sounded small and tired, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Instead, I stayed silent, waiting until I heard her footsteps slowly walking away. The pain inside me wouldn't let me forgive her so quickly. The trust we built had shattered completely. Sitting alone in my office, my mind began racing again. Questions crowded my thoughts, making it hard to find peace. Could our relationship recover from such a betrayal? Would I ever be able to fully trust Wendy again? These doubts troubled me deeply. The bond we had formed over years suddenly seemed fragile, and I wasn't sure if we could mend it. As the night wore on, guilt started mixing into my feelings. I wondered if Wendy genuinely believed she was helping me, misguided as her actions were. Perhaps she had acted out of fear, afraid my past would always overshadow our marriage. Still, her choice had caused damage that felt too great to forgive quickly. Finally, feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, I stood up and moved toward the window, staring out into the dark. Everything seemed complicated now, making me uncertain about how to move forward. My love for Wendy had always felt strong and secure, but at this moment I questioned if love alone could repair the damage between us. I decided then that Eleanor deserved to know what had happened. Honesty had always guided our relationship, and I knew she had a right to hear the truth, even though it would hurt. Sharing this news with my daughter wouldn't be easy, but I had to be brave enough to face it. The conflict wasn't just mine. It involved our entire family, and it needed to be addressed openly. With my mind settled on talking to Eleanor, I took a deep breath, feeling nervous yet determined. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and emotional struggles. But right now, standing alone in the quiet, I felt clear about one thing. My daughter's happiness mattered above everything else, and I would do whatever it took to protect her feelings, even if that meant facing difficult truths. I sat quietly at my desk, feeling trapped by thoughts that wouldn't stop swirling in my head. The reality of our situation felt heavy, pressing down on my shoulders. Wendy continued to reach out, hoping I'd respond, but my silence remained unbroken. Every apology she sent felt sincere, yet somehow it wasn't enough to ease the deep sense of betrayal I carried. Days passed slowly, each one bringing a fresh wave of confusion. Wendy's actions forced me to question everything about our marriage. Could I forgive her fully and truly move on? Or had the trust between us been damaged beyond repair? My heart was torn between my love for Wendy and loyalty to memories I'd treasured for so long. Meanwhile, Eleanor's birthday grew closer, increasing my anxiety. She had always known something special was coming, a promise made long ago. How could I explain that the gift I'd protected for so many years was suddenly gone? The thought of disappointing my daughter deeply troubled me, adding another layer of pain to an already difficult situation. Mutual friends kept pressuring me to quickly forgive Wendy and rebuild our relationship, but their messages made me feel misunderstood and alone. They spoke as if moving on was simple, something I could choose easily. None of them seemed to understand the lasting hurt that Wendy's decision had caused. Every well-meaning comment only made me feel more isolated, more unsure about how to proceed. Some nights, I considered trying to talk with Wendy again. Part of me wanted to end this painful silence and find peace together, but each time I imagined us sitting face to face, my heart filled with doubt. I didn't know if I was ready to hear her reasoning or explanations again. Fear held me back, fear of reopening wounds that hadn't healed yet. In quieter moments, guilt slowly began creeping into my thoughts. Perhaps I was being too harsh, punishing Wendy too severely for one mistake, even if it was a major one. She had been honest about her insecurities before, but I hadn't fully understood the depth of her feelings. Was it fair to remain distant when she genuinely seemed sorry? These questions only deepened my internal struggle, making clear decisions feel impossible. My thoughts soon turned to Eleanor, the one person who mattered most. She had grown up hearing wonderful stories about her mother, carefully told with love and care. I worried now how she would respond, knowing those stories could never come fully to life in the way I'd planned. Would she blame Wendy, or worse, would she feel betrayed by me? The fear of disappointing my daughter kept me awake, my mind unable to rest. One evening, Eleanor noticed my quietness and gently asked if something was wrong. Her question startled me, but I kept my answer brief, not ready to share the truth yet. Looking into her eyes, I realized soon I'd have to be completely honest. The thought filled me with dread, knowing her reaction might change our family forever. As days turned into a full week, the silence between Wendy and me became unbearable. Our home felt tense, the warmth replaced by careful politeness. Wendy moved quietly through the house, trying to respect my space, while I kept myself busy to avoid difficult conversations. This distance hurt, making me wonder if we'd ever find our way back to how things used to be. In the quiet loneliness of our separation, I slowly understood something important. To heal properly, I needed to clearly decide what mattered most, holding on to the pain of betrayal or finding a path toward forgiveness. But forgiveness felt risky. If I chose it, would Wendy fully respect my past? Or would history repeat itself, causing even deeper wounds? This painful uncertainty kept me awake for hours every night. My heart struggled between wanting to heal our relationship and fearing further hurt. The thought of losing Wendy saddened me greatly, yet trusting her completely seemed almost impossible. This internal battle was exhausting, pushing me toward making a decision I didn't feel ready for. One thing became clear: I needed help. Guidance from someone who understood both sides without judgment. But who could I trust with something so personal? Friends had already shown they didn't fully grasp my feelings. Family might choose sides, unintentionally adding more pressure. I realized then that the answers could only come from within, yet finding those answers felt daunting. Sitting alone one evening, staring at family pictures on our wall, I knew my decision would affect everyone deeply. I had to carefully weigh my love for Wendy against protecting my daughter's feelings. Both choices seemed painful, filled with risks. My mind raced through possibilities, each one filled with hope and doubt, fear and courage. At last, I took a deep breath, knowing soon I'd have to face the hardest conversation yet, with Eleanor. No matter how difficult, she deserved the truth. Once she knew everything, perhaps clarity would come, guiding me toward the path I needed to take. Until then, I could only hope my heart would lead me in the right direction. Each choice now felt heavier, carrying the weight of my family's future. Every day, I watched Eleanor closely, hoping she hadn't sensed my inner turmoil. Yet, I knew she was aware something wasn't right. Her smiles were quieter, her laughter less frequent. Seeing her this way reminded me how much my decision mattered, not just for me, but for her life and happiness. The idea of losing Wendy deeply troubled me too. Despite our recent conflict, she remained someone I cared about deeply. Ending our relationship would mean more than just losing a partner. It would mean breaking apart the family we had carefully created. I worried about the effect it might have on Wendy's children, who had grown close to Eleanor. They had bonded naturally, becoming siblings in every way that mattered. At the same time, forgiving Wendy without fully addressing what she'd done felt impossible. I worried it might teach Eleanor the wrong lesson, that it was acceptable to ignore other people's feelings. The responsibility weighed heavily on me. How could I guide my daughter through life, teaching her respect and forgiveness, if I myself wasn't sure how to handle this situation? As the days passed, I saw Wendy change too. Her vibrant spirit dimmed, and she seemed to withdraw from everyone around her. Her sadness felt real and deep. I often found her quietly watching Eleanor, a worried expression on her face. It hurt to see Wendy this way, because despite everything, I still wanted her happiness. Our home had become tense, the warmth we once shared fading day by day. One evening, Eleanor gently asked me if I was unhappy with Wendy. Her question startled me. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure how to answer honestly without hurting her. Eventually, I explained simply that sometimes grown-ups had disagreements, but it didn't mean the end of their love. My heart ached as I spoke, wondering if I was trying to convince her or myself. She nodded quietly, thoughtful but not fully convinced, leaving me feeling uncertain and anxious. Later that night, as I sat alone, I realized just how high the stakes had become. My relationship with Wendy wasn't the only thing at risk. The bond I'd carefully built with Eleanor was also in danger. If I mishandled this situation, my daughter might lose trust in me, the one person she had always relied upon. My role as her father had never felt more important or more fragile. I also worried about Wendy's emotional well-being. Even though she'd hurt me deeply, I couldn't imagine completely pushing her away. After all, she had given me a second chance at happiness when I thought I'd never find love again. The thought of seeing her suffer made my heart heavy, leaving me trapped between compassion and anger. Over time, I understood clearly that whatever choice I made would change our family's future forever. It wasn't simply a matter of forgiveness or moving on. It was about deciding the values our family would uphold. I wanted Eleanor to see respect, honesty, and trust as important. I knew that the decision I made now would shape her understanding of what relationships meant. Slowly, I began to realize this dilemma offered a chance to teach Eleanor something valuable about life. Maybe she needed to see me handle this openly, with both strength and kindness. She needed to witness someone facing tough emotions honestly, choosing forgiveness not out of weakness, but because it was the right thing to do. Yet, every time I thought about reaching out to Wendy, doubts came flooding back. What if Wendy never truly understood the depth of what she'd done? Could I trust her not to hurt me again? My heart still ached, unsure of the answer. Trust felt fragile, hard to rebuild after such damage, yet letting go of Wendy seemed unbearable too. The impact of this conflict became clearer every day. Eleanor's happiness depended on how Wendy and I resolved things. Our choice would influence how my daughter viewed trust, love, and family for the rest of her life. I knew she watched closely, quietly learning lessons from everything we did. This responsibility made me careful and afraid of making mistakes. Slowly, I decided that the only way forward was to face Wendy honestly and directly, no matter how painful it felt. Our family couldn't survive more silence and uncertainty. Soon, I'd sit with her and discuss openly what she'd done, why it hurt so deeply, and what steps we could take to rebuild trust. Our conversation would be hard, filled with difficult truths, but it needed to happen for us to move forward. Whatever came next, I promised myself I'd do everything possible to heal the wounds between us. If forgiveness came, it would be genuine, not rushed. If our paths had to separate, it would happen thoughtfully, with kindness and respect. My main focus remained on protecting Eleanor, guiding her toward understanding and restoring peace within our family. Taking a deep breath, I felt ready to face whatever tomorrow held. This moment wasn't just about repairing broken trust. It was about teaching my daughter that love could survive even the deepest hurts if handled with honesty and courage. Life doesn't give us easy answers, and right now, I'm stuck between love, betrayal, and the weight of a promise I made long ago. Should I forgive Wendy and try to move forward, or has she done something that can never be undone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.